Hello and welcome to Education Scaling Up a Diverse Workforce, Content Creation in the Post-Pandemic World. So as most people here are aware, the pandemic has severely disrupted content creation. The rapid expansion of on-demand streaming platforms stemming from the pandemic has fed an increasing demand for Hollywood quality production of episodic quality content. And in today's panel, we'll look at the content creation ecosystem and how different stakeholders can and should work with one another to make this industry more diverse and genuinely inclusive. We have what I think is an outstanding panel today. It spans from community organizers to educators to industry leaders. I'll start by quickly introducing you to everyone, and then we'll move into some pointed questions, and we'll try to end with about 15 minutes or so of audience Q&A. We ask that you all keep yourselves muted until there is Q&A and that you leave your videos off. So let's start with Kevin Clark. He is the founder and executive director of Takar Foundation for the Performing Arts and Takar Interactive, which is a privately owned business located in the LA area with operations in Central and Northern California. Takar forges broad efforts in urban marketing, advertising, event planning, content delivery, and business development solutions. The foundation champions diversity marketing and interactive programs for homeless, foster care, system impacted, and youth and single mothers in Los Angeles County. This program span both public and private sectors. And Kevin himself has been a visionary and content aggregator for more than 2 decades. As an NAACP award-winning producer of For the Love of Liberty and manages a rare collection of artifacts on the African-American military timeline. His career spans across a broad landscape that is focused on broadcast media, content delivery, and event and exhibit production. His insight and vision has always been focused on diversity marketing and feeding what is now being recognized as the holy grail market share. So welcome to Kevin. Kevin, I should also say, is the organizer of this fantastic panel. And so we are all very grateful to him for bringing everyone together. Anna Marie Piersimoni specializes in the creation and marketing of media content across a broad range of digital platforms. She is currently the instructor of the course New Directions in Electronic Digital Media at Cal State University, Northridge. She was previously the director of internet communications for the American Film Institute in Los Angeles, and she was the founding director of AFI's Digital Content Lab and AFI's K-12 Screen Education Program. As a former writer-producer of video content and on-air promotions, she worked for ABC Entertainment, E! Entertainment, and KCET Television, among others. She holds a BFA with film and video concentration from the Hartford Art School and the University of Hartford in Connecticut, and recently completed a master's degree in media psychology through Fielding Graduate University in Santa Barbara. Her emphasis and area of study is immersive media and how haptic, wearable technology and interaction are implicated in the development of human language. So welcome, Anna Marie, very impressive. Lamar Walker is the co-founder and chief design officer of Valence, a digital network and community for Black professional career success. Lamar originally was a practicing architect in Los Angeles and works across the enterprise innovation area to help build holistic platforms that foster economic growth and inclusive communities. Prior to co-founding Valence at Upfront Ventures, Lamar led the experience and communication design cohorts for Boston Consulting Group's Digital Ventures division from its inception as a leading enterprise innovation foundry. He also enjoys teaching digital innovation and brand building at leading institutions in Southern California. And last but not least, Jen Goldfinch is Foundry's Director of Industry Marketing, where she manages the company's customer-facing programs, including field marketing, social media, alliances, and education. Jen's passion for visual effects films led her to the entertainment technology industry over 15 years ago, where she developed a strong focus on client and industry relations. Jen's dedication for developing meaningful customer activities includes Foundry's recent pivot to a comprehensive virtual events program in 2020. In addition to her role at Foundry, Jen volunteers for the Academy Software Foundation Outreach Committee, the Pipeline Conference, DigPro, and Access BFX. So welcome to all. So I'd like to start by asking Kevin a question. Kevin, you brought us all together here to talk about these issues. You're a community activist. You've been really engaged across this ecosystem. And I think that you serve in this capacity as really a voice for students and other people entering the industry. What do you think that young people, job seekers, really need the most right now?
Well, I think the missing piece for a lot of the students that I work with is they don't have any modeling for what they can be, meaning that they don't have enough mentorship. They have a lot of text, a lot of theory, but they don't see the working person up close and personal. They're not able to do the over the shoulder experience, kind of the job shadowing. I think that they really need to have that opportunity to see how people work day to day, week to week. And that can happen really through several ways. I think a lot of the students I work with need to kind of recalibrate their thinking about how they enter the industry. And some of them have never been told that their first job probably will be as an assistant somewhere. So I would start by helping to get students better prepared for entry and letting them know that they could be most useful as being an assistant, being charmful and delightful, and being someone that can be relevant to the bottom line of a working professional.
Fantastic. And Anna Marie, you are sort of our link here in terms of students and education. How can students identify major roles in the industry, and especially as Kevin has talked about in terms of sort of getting their foot in the door and what they're going to do once they're there? How can they identify those roles, figure out kind of how those roles differ in terms of platforms and type of content? And I think most importantly, what can educators do to help support people in doing this and in this sort of ever-changing world of new emerging media?
Right. Well, it's kind of what I tell my students mainly is the only thing they can count on with technology and media is change. So it's constantly changing. Even if you do set your goals in one particular way, it may change completely. What I did for my bachelor's is nothing like what I do now. There was no media psychology field at that time, and a lot of the digital technology we're dealing with wasn't around. So to be prepared to kind of be nimble and flexible. So I put together a couple of sort of like 5 takeaways, might be 6. I was a math major. So the takeaways that they should get from any internship, entry-level job, because that's where you start first learning what roles are and how to identify them. And it's to constantly be seeing how they're going to change. So what I had were, the first one was to take chances. In counterpoint, I do believe very much in what Kevin was saying about don't expect that you're going to go in and be an executive director. You're going to be an intern. You're going to have a niche. And yet I popped out of an art school and I ended up creating my own nonprofit and being the executive director of it. And many people looked at me at age 21 and said, really? You're the executive director? Well, I was, and I leveraged that and kept going. So take chances. It's okay to fail. In fact, sometimes that's a good thing. There's even a cliche going around now to fail forward as opposed to paying it forward. So take chances, fail, and try again. You just keep trying. When you fail, it doesn't mean everything is over. Learn what you can and keep on moving. Make mistakes, because that's how you learn. The second is to take inventory. So once you do that, you take chances. So then constantly reassess. What did you learn? What do you need to learn? Sometimes people don't even realize their own skills, or to put them out there. I'm constantly talking to students that don't put what they know on a resume or even in their cover letter, or just, or they didn't think it was a big deal. They didn't know. So yeah, assess, take inventory and analyze it. Look at it and see, what else do I need? What's getting old? What needs to be updated? Take classes is the next one. Take classes, conferences. Don't be afraid to say you're in a class. You're just learning. This is the age of students where you have some agency to say, I don't know anything. Help teach me, help me learn that. And they're afraid. Some are so afraid to take advantage of that, to be seen as unknowledgeable. That's when you can say, I don't know anything, help me learn it. So yeah, and then once you take those classes, and that includes conferences like this and others, the next is to take notes. Don't forget, voice memo, write them down, margins of a book or an iPad, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you take some notes, go back, review them. A lot of times notes are there. You just go back to a conference recording, but follow up while it's still fresh. So take those notes, and even more important, share them. So you went there, you had that experience, you learned it, put it out there, because that helps with your networking as well. It shows that you have something to give, that you can develop that. And the next one was take credit. Students are notoriously shy about saying, oh, I did that. And sometimes there's the other end where you've got a complete narcissist. It's different, but generally it tends to be, oh, I didn't think, no, I'm just this, and shy away from it. No, take good credit for what you did. Don't take over credit. Don't go overboard with it, but make sure you get your name and your recognition out there. And then also, on the other hand of that, is to give credit. Yeah, I did that. This assistant worked with me on it. Always give some credit where it's due. Acknowledge accreditation, whether you're writing, creating something, state where you got it from. You know, it's a world of mashups and collaboration, and sorry about that. So giving credit, recognition is really important, both for yourself and for others. It's integrity and professionalism. And then the very last thing I would say is to take good care. Take care of yourself. In the work world, this field can make you go really crazy. I'm sure we've all had all-nighters. Take good care, and then take good care of others. Understand that your friends, your colleagues, and others are going to need some support and help. And there's nothing more that we can do for each other in these pandemic days than to be understanding and helpful. That's it.
I think that's an amazing response. I'm wondering if there's anything that you think would be useful for educators and institutions in particular to be doing for those students, so that they actually are connected to the resources that they need.
Yes, and it's hard because sometimes educators aren't even really connected and know that. But the thing is to, as Kevin will be saying more later too, is to get connected. I tell my students to right away, get on LinkedIn. If nothing else, it puts them in the mode to get their resume thinking going, get organized. To share for educators, listen to your students, learn. They're the ones out there, they've got boots on the ground and are trying different applications, learning about them. Lemaire, I think we'll talk more about that, what you should learn in applications and how to be ready. Once you learn, there's so many that once they learn an application, okay, I'm done. It's like, no, sorry, there's an upgrade. There's another model, or everybody changed. You have to, even if you're not the actual one using it, be familiar, so that when you talk to the person on your team and you're deciding whether to use Unity or Unreal, that you have somebody to help you decide, go all the way into a production. They say, oh, Unity, but you can't do it. So to help them learn how to assess things, keep assessing themselves. That's what educators I think can do. Answered that question, or seems to have frozen. Did something?
You're back. You're back.
Oh, I was the one that was gone. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
okay. I hope that answered that last question, because there's a lot that educators need to do, but they can't learn every field, every topic, every platform, every technology and still teach, especially not if they're in a specific content area like history or nursing or psychology or anything. They have to be on top of their own field, but now they have this other layer to learn. So how much can they learn? You know, it's kind of hard. The main thing is to always learn to learn and teach your students to learn how to learn. But that's constant.
Maya, can I say something to Anna Marie's point? I think the most critical thing, if I have to really think about what I believe students need to get better at, is networking. Not just in these conferences, but amongst themselves every day through LinkedIn and through all these other platforms. Network, network, network. Again, there's no other way to try and get out there and meet people and find out what is going on, what's occurring, what's going to happen, but by networking. So, I think that should be almost a mandatory course for how to make sure that you are networked to the networks.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a great segue to my question for Lemur, which is, how did you start your career in creative tech innovation? And what role did mentors play for you and other people in your networks?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to talk about is the the 0 to 1 moments of trying to figure out how to get out there, and as Kevin's saying, how to network, and as Anna Marie is saying, to be ready for your opportunity. So I discovered SIGGRAPH through that process, where I was in my sophomore year. My computer classes were something I was just really intrigued by at USC. And the instructor gave me a pass to go to SIGGRAPH, and I was just blown away by just all the vast opportunities for applying technology to creative, whether that was MySpace at the time, architecture, or was doing things for film and television or for games. So I really kind of enjoy books and learning, as you can tell. But the idea of kind of finding something to really become a master of was something that was really important to me at the time. And so what I did was I really kind of got into a space where I wanted to connect with people who had mastered their own kind of, I would say, business of creativity. And so I started calling at the time. I would probably do it differently in this decade, but I started calling at the time production designers. I found out that there was an easy bridge between the world of architecture and the world of production for film and television. And carrying forward some of the knowledge that I had from experimenting with the tools that year, I got an opportunity to work, and that was my first kind of intern job. And it was a great one because it was very hands-on as well as very digital, way back when. So that bridge into the built and the digital world was where I got my start. I was able to connect with someone who frankly wanted to give someone from a DEI background a chance. He hadn't had anyone in his team from the African American kind of background, and he was constantly working with directors and producers of color, and said, "Hey, I want to have you join this." So it was a bridge to me into that world, as well as me kind of making my way over towards it. So it kind of was that kind of time opportunity horizon thing that happens when people find something they're interested in, they find the right context to bring it to life, and it can happen. So that was the kickoff of me kind of taking design into the media and innovation space eventually.
Fantastic. It's a wonderful example. And in terms of, and Jen, this is a question for you. We've talked about how students or young people can look to different resources where they should be going, the types of things that they can do. But from an organizational perspective, from the perspective of a company that's in the industry, what can companies in VFX do to ensure and support lasting DEI progress? So what's their role in all of this?
Um, Thanks, Maya. Yeah, I'm listening to my fellow panelists and some of the common threads, and I think there's been a lot of talk and a lot of support in the VFX industry for growing a diverse workforce. And from an industry perspective, I think really understanding and reaching out to the community we have is really important. And none of us can do it alone. It's a big mountain to climb. And I think, for us at Foundry, we've partnered with some very smart organizations. I work with, I mentioned the Academy Software Foundation, which is a group of companies that come together for open source technology. They've done a lot of work. There's a D&I committee there that's done a lot of work with outreach in the community, trying to bring the opportunities and the jobs to students, both in engineering and art, that are offered in the film industry. It's a lot about knowledge, and thinking back to what Anna Marie said about the educators and the communication. I think the comments from both Kevin and Lemur on mentorship is really important. We also support a couple of organizations that are very focused on mentorship programs, including Women in Animation, Access VFX. So for us at Foundry, we try and help spread the word through these organizations to reach more schools and more students. And it's been quite a powerful journey overall. Access VFX, which is an organization that's based in the UK as well as the US, recently updated their numbers on the mentor program that we sponsor at Foundry. And there's been 800 students that have come through that have worked with industry professionals from diverse backgrounds, both on the mentor and the mentee side. The idea behind Access VFX is to reach people that might not know about careers in design or visual effects. And all the companies that participate are very keen on reaching those students, reaching those potential employees, and bringing them into the industry, because no one can deny that the more diverse workforce you have is a productive and powerful and creative workforce. Bringing different backgrounds and different experiences is such a positive impact on any organization, and everybody just wants to see that grow.
Absolutely. Do you have any suggestions for creating these connections between a company and an educational institution? So who should companies look to at educational institutions to forge some connection?
No, it's an interesting conversation, and it's actually one we're having right now internally at Foundry, because from an organization's perspective, often we'll work with schools, like we might work with Anna Marie's school, but we might not know Anna Marie personally, right? There's a lot of amazing things. I'm lucky I do, thank goodness, but there's a lot of amazing teachers out there, and reaching them is really hard. Teachers are so overworked and so busy, and there's so many things they need to do, and reaching them and connecting with them isn't always easy. And we always use SIGGRAPH in person, and virtual as a possibility. But some of the things, I think, going back to Anna Marie's great comment on LinkedIn, it's such a powerful platform to connect. So my advice to educators and students, it's not just on the teachers that need to do this, it's also on the students. You're in a course, follow the companies on the software tools you use. And there could be many paths in that, right? You could read about the different organizations they're part of. There's a lot of information that gets put out on LinkedIn or Twitter or even Facebook, less I find, but more on LinkedIn, Twitter, even Instagram, following these companies. And, a company like Foundry, for example, or a company like Autodesk or other companies in our space, they post the different initiatives that they're working on. They post customer projects. And the more you know, and the more you know about the company that you are learning their tools, like I personally believe, students have the power to choose companies that are trying to make change, and they can work with these tools and follow these companies and I'll say it, hold us accountable. What are we doing to help the D&I issue, and how are what are we doing? What are other companies doing? What are their involvements? And there's so much info that they can gather based on social media. Just follow people, link in with people, and just be engaged and be aware of the tools you're being taught, and and the companies that are behind them, because there's a lot of powerful, really great. I mean, I'll use a company like Netflix, for example. If you follow Netflix on YouTube, they've got some fantastic channels on diversity, on job roles, on the challenges that Netflix faces every day. And, you know, their YouTube is brilliant with all the different opportunities. So you want to work at Netflix, follow Netflix. You want to employ students at Netflix, follow them. You know, there's so much out there, and doing it via social media is a quick snapshot for a lot of people that'll help them.
I'd like to interject one thing here, that even though Facebook seems to be the, you know, bastard stepchild of all this, their groups, their working groups, their professional
Yes.
groups are fantastic. And so one thing, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, I'm not sure that Instagram is organized quite the same way, but you can get in with a group that's doing just VFX. I'm in a Women in XR group. There's tons of them, and they're very professional. There's a lot of connection, discussion, people, and the ones with VR, AR, and XR, people are putting projects up and looking for feedback. You can't
is an
get better
excellent
than
point.
that.
Yeah,
it's really
I would
good.
say the Foundry Nuke groups, not started by us. We have nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. It's all our community. That is a super powerful group.
Yeah.
And, you know, to students out there, if it feels overwhelming, just don't give up. Don't let them, don't be shy to join a group, ask questions, state who you are, and just be open and honest.
And Kevin, do you have any suggestions for organizations that are looking to connect back with educational organizations or with community organizations? Who should they be talking to? You're a great connector, so can you give some tips?
That word connector is my middle name. One of the things that I stress for students as well as industry, they aggregate a lot of effort through these conferences, like SIGGRAPH. And there's employment resource groups inside of each corporation that are looking to do this kind of mentorship work, especially with diverse communities. I think that there's a way to connect people through these conferences. I strongly suggest that students start researching some of the conferences that are coming up. In the month of September and October, there's like 4 major ones that I'll be attending. So I'd like to make sure that everybody that's on this particular panel, as well as the audience, let's connect and network through LinkedIn so that I can, you know, get you guys involved with Mobile World Congress. It's coming up in October. Mobile World Congress, Los Angeles, National Association of Broadcasters in Las Vegas. Well, it will be virtual. Sports Video Group in October. These are places where you will be able to find one another, mentors, mentees, working professionals, employment resource groups. This is where I think most people will converge on what are the ways ahead to try to, you know, connect to projects and pilots. So
I want to add to that what Kevin said, and he said before, he mentioned really that if somebody first comes into a job, they'll have you shadow somebody already doing it. But sometimes there's some, especially when you're a student, you could ask for these favors. I want a job shadow. But also in the networking end of it, there's something called an informational interview. So don't wait for a job interview. Call somebody, find somebody in your network. You know, as Jen was talking about, the especially the company networks, and write them cold if you can, but if you got a connection, always use, although sometimes you got to watch out, maybe the connection is somebody they don't really like that much, so scrutinize it. But go in and ask if you can just have 15 minutes, a half an hour to talk to them about the work. You're exploring the field, you're exploring what to do, and you just want to know. And you never know, that informational interview gets you in front of somebody who says, I remember that person. I remember Lemur came in and asked me some really good questions, and said, I'm gonna pass them on to my supervisor, my colleague, and say, you know, I was impressed by this person to talk to me, but I want to talk to them. So connecting means connecting, reconnecting, spreading out. And sometimes you take the onus off of somebody who thinks, oh my God, I'm getting hit up for jobs left and right, and I don't even have any. So if you say, I only want information, kind of making it a little easier, a little more comfortable for everyone.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, your awareness and self-awareness around when and how that person's workflow, that person's schedule, and kind of like, yearly cycle that's going on is really important as well. Like if you understand that someone in a position that you really admire is quite busy, um, give them time, right? Like the expectation that they have time is not always the case in that moment. I've had in those early days where I was trying to make my way in, that meeting that worked out and changed my life, that took 4 months, right? For me to be patient enough for a time window of 15 minutes for this person to see the work that I had and its relevance and the personality that he was interested in having around him at the time. And so you'll find your way in terms of how that works out. But I just want to throw that out there as I kind of have been put in the chair that my mentor was years ago. My schedule and my bandwidth are things that it's fantastic when I meet people who understand that. And it doesn't always align immediately with your schedule, but it's worth it to be patient.
It's also worth it to be open too. So maybe you don't get in with the biggest monkey. You had a contact with them anyway. They're busy. They're really busy. Always ask, is there somebody on your team that I can talk to? Because sometimes the up and coming person is the one that's going to give you more time, give you more attention rather, and maybe entertainment. And then they'll remember you too, and they'll move you along on their own professional trajectory. So just say, I know you're busy. Is there someone else who might be appropriate for me to talk? I'm dying to talk to you, but could I start with somebody?
Yeah, and if that's the method that you need to take, my advice would be to have something to show, because to have that handoff, they need to have the quick currency to be able to get someone to take the time, whether they're available or not, to work with you on your future. And people in this space using software to create and to tell stories and so forth, it's in the work. And if you're choosing pathways that surround that in terms of, hey, I want to be a project manager in that space, I won't necessarily have the best artistic portfolio, then have something around that. But I think in terms of giving yourself a chance, it's really important that you have your secret weapon that you can show.
Yeah, portfolios, hands down, the most important thing you can do. Samples, portfolios, a little as close as you can to what you're going after, but even others that just show creativity, organizational thinking, anything like that. People need to see stuff. Really, we all do. And sometimes even if you have the best recommendation from one of their colleagues, somebody else has a better sample of work that is authentic and true to what they do. That person come back and say, I really like Jen and she's wonderful and I respect her opinion on every level, but this was a hard decision to make and it wasn't the right fit at the moment. That's the word that is usually used. So they'll skirt around that. Yeah.
I'd love to jump in on that portfolio because I actually see a question that was sent in. So from Foundry's perspective, we were talking briefly about Instagram. So I'm going to put this out there for the artists out there on the call, or teachers that support artistic communities. So I'm going to put it out for the developers and the engineers out there. But on the artist side, so there's some great platforms online for digital artists and visual effects artists. ArtStation, if you haven't heard of it, you can build your own free online portfolio. You can put in the software tools you use. A lot of recruiters support ArtStation and look at ArtStation on a regular basis. So definitely put your work out there. And while we talked briefly about Instagram, what I would say about Instagram for Foundry is one of our passion projects is to focus on user-generated content. And we get a lot of that information when we see hashtag made with Nuke, hashtag made with Mari. So we'll share that on our platform. And we have something like 18,000 followers or something on Instagram. And there's a lot of professional people. So consistently getting your work out there. There's an organization called The Rookies that does student contests, submitting these things. They're all there. They're supported by every major company in the space: Autodesk, Epic, Unity, Foundry, and many others. Adobe. So putting your work out there. Adobe, actually, speaking of Instagram, has some great user-generated content. Just tagging it. They have student programs, both on the 3D and the 2D side. But again, back to that, follow these companies because they'll present opportunities for you, and it'll get your work visible. Flipping over to the developer side of the, oh, sorry, I want to just answer that question that Misha asked about portfolio piece based on a production to a studio she's applying to. Take a look at ArtStation. A lot of people do fan art. I know I've talked to studios that, you know, a lot of studios secretly love fan art, but maybe their bosses don't, but you know, or their movie studios don't, but the visual effects studios do. So just follow and see what other people are doing, and see what they, and you can always ask them, reach out to a recruiter. Hey, I'd love to show this to you.
Absolutely.
If I
Yes.
do a stormtrooper, is that going to be good or bad? You know, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you if it's okay, if they have the bandwidth, but don't give up and keep asking. And I just want to add on the. Sorry, go ahead.
I got my first job with ABC, the network. They gave me a copy of an episode of Benson. And I wrote spots at night in a cable studio at night. I wrote them, I cut them, I put them all together. And I got my job through that. But I had asked if I had something I could work on. So they may give it to you. There's also a certain amount that's fair use. It's how much you use. You're not putting it out in the world. Just double check that always with anything you do. It may be something that's covered through fair use. You just can't put it out anywhere else in that closed environment.
That's a very good point. Actually, and to call out the Academy Software Foundation. So this is a community that supports open source tools that are used in the visual effects industry. And there's an asset working group that's actually coming up with production level assets from the different studios like Disney and DreamWorks and Netflix to make sure that these assets can be used in demos and practice. So I would take a look at what ASWF has to offer. And just a quick shout out to any budding engineers on the call. The open source community is wide open to students who want to participate and join. And whether you're following Blender on the art side or some of the engineering
Love
tech,
Blender.
you know, look at what they're doing. And I heard from one of the studio heads who basically said on a conference call, if I see that a student contributed to an open source project on the engineering side, as far as I'm concerned, they're hired. So that's
Right.
you know, that's a call to action right there from someone pretty famous in the VFX industry. So, you know, listen to what they're saying.
It's really important, as Jen was saying, that what she pointed as a nugget that's very special and important to me is for people to understand and respect levels, different types of intelligence and creativity across the disciplines, across the skills. So engineers, to me, are some of the most brilliant creative people in the world. It's not just the designers and production designers and artists and directors and writers, but engineering is creative. And a lot of times coding and learning how to riff off of some code that already exists, provided you are conscious of copyright there too. It's creative, and honestly, so is business. You will understand that if you are working with a business person, you're starting a business, jumping into one, you'll see that a good, smart, creative business person can make or break the product, the production. So it's there to recognize it, understand it, and support it.
Anna Marie, can you maybe talk a little bit about how individuals who are working in an internship or in an entry-level job, how they can sort of make the most of it? So what should they be looking to get out of any single work experience? Should they be trying to sort of diversify as they go from one to the next, or should they be trying to get that diversity of experience within a given workplace?
Yeah, that's going to depend on your particular experience. Some jobs may want you to be in a niche. Just here's what you do, here are your tasks, do them. You do that, you do it well. And then you talk about how you watch what's going on, see if you can get to sit in, job shadow, or watch another aspect, talk about what you're interested in. Remember, you're new, you're a student, it's valid, really valid to say that, ask those questions. If you are in a more open-ended thing, then try out those different roles, but try not to get too spread out, because you can't always That's part of why we have these roles. You can't do every single thing beautifully. I mean, a lot of people do, independent filmmakers, they're handling their business, they're marketing their film, the design, but they still have to work with a good designer, another editor, really to get to the end product and have it done well. But it does help if they know all those, because you have the language then too. You sit down with an editor and say. So for your experiences, in those experiences, when you're learning, suss out the situation, make sure you do what you're really brought in there to do first, because you don't want to be shirking that or seen as shirking that. You've got to do that and do it well, but then feel free. And if they shut you down, then you know that maybe that's a place you don't want to work in the future, or you know that, okay, I just got to pay more attention to this. You're going to learn. Remember that you are an asset as well. So you're not a beggar on the street, but you are offering, and you're offering the future to them. So you can suss things out too. Is this the kind of place? Is this the company culture that I want to be in? Is this is this giving me creativity, or is it sticking me in a corner with a blog book? What do I, or they just want me here to run for coffee? That's like the worst thing that you can have, except maybe if you run from coffee from set to set to set or different offices, you'll learn something from that. Whatever you can in those relationships, try to gather what you can without interrupting things, and let people know that you want to learn and try more.
Lamar, I'd ask you the same question. What would you recommend people trying to get out of a given work experience?
Well, first is I want to kind of segue with a question that is really interesting. I think it's Misha who's asking about the nuances of portfolio and/or preparation for those jobs, where she's asking about the advertising space, which is leveraging a lot of motion graphics, a lot of other filmic production techniques. That sensibility, though, that type of storytelling is somewhat specialized. So I would recommend, again, following and kind of zooming in on the things that really resonate with you, spending your time to kind of curate the things that really speak to you, find out who's behind that. What are those company kind of lists that you can build that might be near you or might be remote that you could get in touch with, and just start your journey of how you actually show them what you like to do and what you have done. And then once you actually get that opportunity, you've crossed the Rubicon now, you're actually now in. And again, depending on that mentorship or just the kind of like framework that they have for someone coming into the team, find ways to show that you're growing while you're there, right? That you came in with a portfolio that has some fan kind of narratives or some experiments with Nuke or whatever it might have been. Show them how you actually learned some specific techniques with them along the way, that you can apply that to some of the projects, and you might actually get put on stage, right? That actually might make it into the final spot. But don't be surprised if it doesn't, because they've got a whole workflow, but you'll get there eventually. So I would just say that growth kind of planning, kind of thinking through how you're progressing and making sure that they're able to see that and you're able to give feedback, chances are you end up in a full-time position over there very quickly. Because as an employer and as someone helping employers, the one thing I can say about talent showing up is once we discover that you're really good at what you do, we don't want to let you go.
Right.
We certainly don't want you to feel like this is not a place you're going to continue to grow into, because we absolutely are desperate to find really great aligned talent that fits in with us culturally, and that's the broad term of like what we're doing as a diverse team. But you're also getting how the actual work product and that whole process, kind of starts and succeeds. So that's kind of my advice, is getting in and showing the growth pattern and making sure that they will want you.
Fantastic.
That kind of fits in with what I was saying before about taking inventory. What have you learned? Now we have to rate everything from a phone call to a cup of coffee. So rate yourself, put on 5 stars. Where are you? Did you move up from 4 stars to 5 in this particular skill? Do that and put some notes. I only knew that before, this what I know now, because you'll know it. It'll be more at the top of your head and your fingertips when somebody asks you. You won't have to rack your brain and say, oh God, you'll have it there. You'll already be practiced in what you know, how to convey it, what you've learned, and what you want to learn.
And one other thing I want to mention about the learning process, Anne-Marie, you brought this up, and Jen, Kevin, I mean, it's like to be in this era with the resources that you all have in terms of learning. You know, I can tell you, it's now known as LinkedIn Learning, but Linda Weinman changed my whole career in the mid 2000s, where a lot of the things that I had touched my hands very lightly on in terms of tools, digital tools, I was able to go deep because the videos were 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so it sometimes boggles my mind when I, enthusiastically present that method to students or other people, and they're like, yeah, no, I'd rather have someone show me that. Well, maybe that's not going to happen. Maybe
Right.
maybe you don't like video. Maybe you should read it or do whatever you have to do to get it into your body. But don't be on a team where you can't avail yourself of that deep knowledge, at least in one thing, and be able to show that growth projection. I mean, I keep saying that, and maybe that's the consultant kind of experience that I had, where we're constantly measuring progress for people. And that's also what a mentor should be able to do for you as well. So just want to throw that out there, that the resources of connectivity, of mastery and learning and exposure, you're in the golden age of this. So, make sure you're showing up with that stuff well in hand, and you got your go-to resource for when you're on a team and they say, hey, I need you to learn this really quickly. You can do it.
An excellent point. And there's so much that just the companies, again, those tools you're learning in class, those software tools, the companies have a treasure trove of learning resources. If I think about just what we have at Foundry, what Epic and Unity have, I mean, Autodesk, Adobe, again, like we all have teams that are dedicated of varying sizes to learning and to training. And I love what you said before, Anna Marie, about learn to learn. And I always used to love the old school expression, if you're not earning, you should be learning. But in this day and age, you should always be learning. You know what? Even when you're earning, learn, because things change fast, and there's a lot of info out there to follow. So it's there at your fingertips, but it can be daunting, I think, to go through it. So understood, but it's yeah, I mean, there's so much. It's a treasure trove.
I'd like to go ahead and open this up to audience Q&A if we can.
Yeah, now's your chance. Ask the hard questions.
Maya, I'm going to make a pitch here for myself. I am kind of on a recruiting mission right now. I'm looking for people who aren't necessarily students. They could be alumni. They could just be people out there looking for work. If you are interested in a project that will give you an IMBD credit, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I've actually hired 4 students, or former students, and I'm looking for more people to put on a team. So I just want to throw that out there.
One thing I want to maybe throw out and visit is the international, global context within which these opportunities exist. Meaning, now that people can be completely remote and work on teams, the competition level and the quality levels are a full spectrum, right? You've got people who have had advantages or just early exposure, whatever it might be, competing at the same time for opportunities with people who are just learning it. And it's going to come down to, timing and opportunity, of course, but also the level of hunger and passion and drive. And so this, again, taps into the learning space, but it also taps into just the hustle space. And I just want to throw it out there that, pre-2020, I think a lot of things could have been regionalized a bit more than they are and will be in the future. So just, know that if you're in Montreal, right, you could be working with groups in Vancouver far easier and far faster in the film and TV industry than 2 years ago. If you're in North
100%.
Carolina, the same.
Also really exciting.
If you're in North Carolina, you can be working with people that are here in LA while you're doing whatever you're doing with Epic Games over there. I mean, so it's really a flourishing time. And I just want to throw it out there in terms of you guys learning these tools and mastering them. It just sets you up for so many unprecedented opportunities for wherever you are and wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not only is that, don't look at it as, okay, I guess there's more opportunities, but what an exciting time. I mean, it really is to think that you might be able to work with somebody in another country across the globe, how much there is to learn just personally from that. And I know that the Women in XR group has got, I'm just floored. I get up in the morning and on Wednesday and there's women from Nigeria, and there's men in it too, actually. It's not only women centric, but there's women from Nigeria, from Toronto, from Berlin, from New York, San Francisco here. And it just blows my mind. And there's so many smart people doing things in all parts of the world. It really helps you to get out of the US centric shell and narrowness to see this brilliance
We
happening
have questions
everywhere.
coming from David and then from Joe. David Rickster.
Yes, hey, thank you. This question is for Kevin, but others please chime in. I'm just curious, as I've been hearing you all talk, what stands out to me is that many of you are based in Southern California, and we talk about access to resources and being connected to a network. I'm curious to hear from you all, how do you connect those who are in rural communities who are looking to be a part of your community but don't have access to a platform? They aren't on LinkedIn. They want to have that job at Unity, Epic, but they aren't part of the connected group. So would love to hear how you all are working to further provide opportunity and resources to those who are the most underserved, disadvantaged in this country. Thank you.
Wow.
Could I take a crack at that one?
Please.
So I mean, from my perspective, so I'm actually in Montreal, and I love Heather's question about when was Montreal not cool. I would say about 20 years ago, it wasn't so cool. It was really actually hard, and it was really hard to find jobs. We didn't have this amazing VFX industry that we do now. We had a few companies at the time, but the work that some organizations are doing, David, like Access VFX, that's actually their biggest mission. Started out in the UK, and they have a US branch as well, was to reach people who weren't in central London, reach people who couldn't be reached. It's probably, I think what Anna Marie was saying, that this day and age with the remote capability and the internet and the resources available, it's in a good place where this is possible. I remember working at Autodesk, and we worked with Skills USA, and we had a 3D visualization challenge. I mean, students came from all over America. It was based in Kansas City. Yes, Kansas City. And kids came from all over, mostly Midwest. They weren't from the East Coast or the West Coast. They were there, and they were getting involved in their school activities. So that's at the high school level. And it's really, I think, we all need to do better with awareness of these programs. I think that's the biggest challenge. And I know for me, trying to reach teachers, not just in California or Vancouver, or Montreal or London, but how can we reach the folks in central US to make them aware of programs? It's a big initiative for a lot of companies. And I would go back to those organizations I was talking about.
I would
If that
also,
helps.
yeah, I would like to add on that there are some structures in certain rural communities that we're not recognizing and taking advantage of. So the community television system in Oregon, for example, very highly developed along the schools, the university. And I had a friend actually that was her job, to make sure that television was produced and made for these communities. So she was in charge. It was an entire Native American channel. So they had a number of those channels. And I think we in the city, we have so many resources. It's urban, we're not necessarily thinking of that kind of resource, but a lot of the rural are very connected. We have to tap in to some of those resources and make some connections there, what we can offer through systems that are somewhat in place. Some of that's true in the urban areas as well. So there's, internship departments that do that. They don't always all talk to each other. I got a lot of students internships completely outside of what our internship department does. But I've been trying, when I do that, I try to put them in touch so that things can get a little more streamlined, a little more integrated, but it's hard with everyone scrambling. And I think that in some ways, again, the rural areas are a little bit more organized because they're dependent on it more. We should definitely tap into that. And that's in this country. It's different, obviously, in others.
We have one last question coming from Joe, which is, will remote work, and this goes right back to the question though, I think, will remote work have any leveling effect on diversity, eliminating some of the related factors, challenges that often accompany minority or other groups? That's the big question. And a good one.
Well, I would throw my my bet on it actually enhancing the presence of more diverse teams, because you can, with the broader spread and the broader reach of remote team opportunities, you can curate with that specificity a lot more because you're working from a larger pool. Hopefully you have the time to do so for the teams that are doing and the companies that are doing it, but absolutely it should enhance it. At least in my experience, it has.
I think the biggest problem that we have with that, because the mindset is there, the desires are there, the creativity is there, content is there, but the bandwidth isn't all there. And that's where I would say, let's check in with the community colleges and the cable systems, because a lot of that is there on that level. But students, I find my students widely diverse in terms of what the equity is of what they have, and connection to and access to. So some of them don't have webcams at all, or their webcams have broken, or they're in a one studio apartment with an entire family with little ones and grandpa and grandma. And it's very hard to engage the way we are when they're in that situation, just overwhelmed with family, not having the best equipment. And these are students who are supposed to be majors in media, cinema, TV, and God bless them that they're trying to do this while they have limited equipment. And it's harder. There's others that are just saving money, not going to UC or USC or anything like that, staying at home with their parents and getting the undergrad degree done at a school that has a fantastic film and TV department. They're smart, but as far as resources, I had one that went out and bought a drone because they were doing a project on drones, just got it like that, but on the next day. And I have another that was training from Inglewood daily about that. Figuring out the economic diversity and the access to equipment and technology is going to be a big part of this. And the other, I'm just going to throw it in there, we talked about a little bit, it's really for another panel, but we all need to be conscious going forward of what the predispositions are towards race and ethnicity within our content, within our companies, and within access. So from the early days of Kodak, Kodachrome was created for one type of race and color. And we're having that situation come up with algorithms. And yes, our equipment, our business, our technology is more and more based on these algorithms. So we need to sit up straight real quick and watch what's happening with that.
Bravo. Good point, Anne Marie.
Yeah, just one last point I want to make in my kind of motivation mindset. To the students and to the companies, you start where you are, right? Take that first step. If you don't have the equipment, or if you don't even have a good internet connection at home, you got to find the way to get yourself started. And if that means getting a book or getting something that allows you to start to build your approach to things, start just drawing, whatever it might be. And then find your way to being able to talk to someone, whether that's a community college level instructor or someone that you research and you find that they did the TV commercial that you wanted. People are so much more open than they ever have been because of these technology platforms. If you have a mobile phone that allows you to go on to LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram, you can do a lot. So I'm just saying, I came from a place of deprivation to kind of scrape on rocks to get something done, but you got to lean into it. And the great thing again about this time is the companies like Jens and all the others that are showing up, and they want you to grow into this space. They know that there's an opportunity for you to help transform their businesses. So don't let that first hurdle be the one that stops you from taking on the 10th.
Lamar, I think that was an excellent way to end, very upbeat and positive. Thank you all so much for participating in the panel. Thank you to everyone for attending, and hope you enjoy the rest of SIGGRAPH.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.